kids these days are all into modern monetary theory. What's that about?
Okay. Modern monetary theory is accounting.
Mm-hmm.
I want to summarize it bluntly. It's simply saying, let's do the accounting, because what money is a creature of double entry bookkeeping. Okay.
What's double entry bookkeeping?
Banks, this was invented back in the 1500s in Italy. I've forgotten the particular merchant who did it, based on some Arabic ideas as well. But the thing is, if you want to keep track of your financial flows, then you divide what you all the financial claims on you. You divide into claims you have on somebody else, which are your assets; claims somebody else has on you, which are your liabilities, and the gap between the two is your equity. So you record every transaction twice on one row. Okay, so for example, if you and I do a financial transfer, you have a bank account, I have a bank account. Your bank account will go down, mine goes up. Okay, and that's the sum of the operation is zero.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but on the other hand, if I go to a bank and borrow money, then my account goes up. They put money in my deposit account. The bank's assets go up. Okay, and there's still the same sum applies. Assets minus liabilities minus equity equals zero. Now, that's simply saying money is a creature of accounting. It's not a creature of a commodity. So if you think about how Austrians think about money and how gold bugs think about money and Bitcoin enthusiasts, if there are any left, think about money, what they see is money as an object, okay? And you and I can both have more gold if we're both willing to go to this, a mine somewhere and dig a few holes and get a few specks of gold out. So there's no competition or no interaction between you and me if money is gold. And they think money should be an object, a commodity. But money fundamentally is not a commodity. It's a claim on somebody else. That's money as its essence. So when you do it, you must use double entry bookkeeping to do it. And then when you do, you find all the answers that come out of thinking of money as a commodity are wrong. So, for example, and I've got Elon on this one. So I want to get this through to Elon because I saw him making a comment about this a few weeks ago on Twitter. He said that it's wrong for the government. Effectively, it seems wrong for the government to always be in deficit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, when you look at it and say, well, how is money created? How does money come about when it's not a commodity like gold, which you dig up out of the ground, when it's actually social relations between people that create money? Well, money is they're fundamentally the liabilities of the banking sector. If we make a transfer between us, your deposit account goes down, my deposit account goes up. Those are exchanges on the liability side of the banking sector. But if we have a transaction with a bank, then if the bank lends us money, its loans go up, its deposits go up. Again, that same balance. So you've got to look and say money, therefore, is fundamentally the liabilities of the banking sector. So how do you create additional liabilities? You must have an operation which occurs both on the liability side and the asset side of the banking sector. So if you and I make a transaction, no money is created. Existing money is redistributed. But if you go to a bank and take out a bank loan, then money is created by the bank loan. So the liabilities of the banking sector rise, the assets rise, they're balanced, but more liabilities of the banking sector means more money. Okay, so that's how private banks create money, and that's what I first started working on when I became an academic about 35 years ago. The actual dynamics of private money creation. But the government has the same sort of story. If the government runs a deficit, it spends more money on the individuals in the economy than it taxes them, which means their bank accounts increase. So a government deficit creates money for the private sector. Okay, so that's where money creation occurs from the government. So it puts money in it puts more money into people's bank accounts by spending, by welfare payments, than it takes out by taxation. So that's creating new money. And then on the other side, on the bank, the money turns up in the reserve accounts of the banks, which are basically the private bank's bank accounts at the central bank. So rather than the asset of private money creation being loans, the asset of government money creation is reserves. Okay?
Right. Money creation is a good thing. So you mentioned a bunch of stuff like private money creation with the liabilities in the banks, and then how the government is doing, the reserves, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, there's a bunch of printers that are printing money. What is money? And then you also said something interesting, which is social relations between humans is what creates money. I think my mind was blown several times over the past minute. So it's difficult for me to reconstruct the pieces of my mind back together. But basic question, is money creation a good thing or a bad thing?
Money creation is a good thing because money creation is what allows commerce to happen.
Isn't there a conservation of...
No, there isn't. I had arguments with physicists over this, and it took me a long time to answer it. They thought the sum total of all money is zero.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the sum total of all assets and liabilities is zero. So if you imagine your assets minus your liabilities is your equity, and your asset is somebody else's liability, and your liability is somebody else's asset. When we're talking about financial assets, and this is another mind-blowing thing that I've just recently solved for myself. So the sum total of all financial assets and liabilities is zero.
Okay, wait. I'm going to interrupt you rudely. What are assets? What are liabilities?
Assets are your claims on somebody else. So
specific. Give me an example of an asset.
Okay. Do you have a mortgage for this house?
No, I'm renting.
You're renting. There you go. Well, if you had a mortgage, that'd be your liability.
That would be my liability.
Okay. The mortgage with the bank's asset.
Right.
Okay. If you add the two together, you get zero.
Okay. So that's zero.
That's zero. The money is the liability side of the banking sector.
Okay.
Okay. Assets are the assets on the other side can be either created by the banking sector, which is where you get bank loans, or created by the government, where you get reserves. But money is the liabilities. Money is, if you think about protons and antiprotons in that sense, money is like the antiproton. It's the negative, the liability.
But wait. The liability is the negative.
Yeah.
Well, how's that money? I thought money is the positive.
What is a liability for the banking sector is an asset for you and me.
So an asset includes money.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you have a bank, like you'd have a bank account and you'd have some cash. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are your assets. But the bank account is a liability of the banking sector, and the cash is a liability of the Federal Reserve.
Okay. So what's money?
Well, money is money is the promise of a third party that we both accept to close our transaction. And that's
a bank?
That's a bank. Yeah, this is one of the most important works I've ever read. Is a work by a wonderful, now unfortunately deceased, tiny Italian economist called Augusto Graziani.
Oh,
and he's the most wonderful personality. Augusto, I met him on a few occasions, is one of the few human beings who can speak in perfectly formed paragraphs. Okay, superbly eloquent. And what he did was write a paper called the Monetary Theory of Production. You can find it downloaded on the web. It's pretty much open source now. And what he said is, what distinguishes a monetary economy from a barter economy? So he said, in a barter economy, what we do is, I'll give you two of these for one of those. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, barter. Just we're working at a relative price. There are two of us involved, and there are two commodities. So with money is a triangular transaction. Okay, there is one commodity. I want to buy that can of drink off you. Two people, and the price that's worked out ends up being in a transfer from the promises to pay the bank that the buyer has to the promises to pay the bank that the seller has. So so what you have is a monetary transaction in a capitalist economy involves three agents: the buyer, the seller, and the bank.
So the bank always has to be part of it.
Well, the bank has to be part of it. When I hand you the money, you accept that as you've now got, rather than it's the bank promising to pay me something, it's now the bank promising to pay you something. And we exchange the promises of banks, and that's fundamentally money.
So money is fundamentally a threesome, and everybody gets fucked. Is that a good way to put it? No.
It leads
I'm just kidding.
Now I can use French in this conversation. So that's good.
That's not French. That's a different language. I'll explain it to you one day. But you Australians would never understand.